back. I'm gonna read a little bit before I go to practice. Before I leave. Because my time management was that bad that I woke up a little bit late. But yeah, that's on me and my time management. Anyway, Terry, I did not know a bitch made a dog. I did not know a bitch was a female dog. But it's good to know. I thought a bitch meant like referring to a woman. That's on me. Now I know. But hey, that's good to know. I'm falling down a rabbit hole. Wall Gaines thought uneasily as he listened to Lim Johnson. This new high-tech world of space flight, computers in the home, satellite relayed telephone calls, factory robots, and now biological engineering seemed utterly unrelated to the world in which he was born and grew up. For God's sake, he had been a child during World War II, when there had not been jet aircraft. He hailed from a simpler world of boat-like Chryslers with tail fins, phones with dials instead of push buttons, clocks with hands instead of digital display boards. What year are we in? So I'm guessing the setting is, and the time frame is in the not future 2050s, 2040s. If you were a kid in World War II, so I'm guessing we're like in the late 90s or like early to late 21st century. Television did not exist when he was born, and the possibility of nuclear Armageddon within his own lifetime was something no one could have predicted. He felt as though he had stepped through an invisible barrier from his world into another reality that was on a faster track. This new kingdom of high technology could be delightful or frightening, and occasionally both at the same time. Like now, the idea of an intelligent dog appealed to the child in him and made him want to smile. But something else, the outsider, had escaped from those labs and scared the bejesus out of him. The dog had no name, Lem Johnson said. That's not so unusual. Most scientists who work with lab animals never name them. If you name an animal, you will inevitably begin to attribute a personality to it, and then your relationship to it will change, and you will no longer be as objective in your observations as you had to be. So the dog had only a number until it was clear this was the success Weatherby had been working so hard to achieve. Even then, when it was evident that the dog would not have to be destroyed as a failure, no name was given to it. Everyone simply called it a dog, which was enough to differentiate it from all of Weatherby's other pups, because they'd been referred to by numbers. Anyway, at the same time, Dr. Yarbeck was working on other, very different research under the Francis Project umbrella, and she, too, finally met with some success. Yarbeck's objective was to create an animal with dramatically increased intelligence, but one also designed to accompany men into war as police dogs, accompany cops into dangerous urban neighborhoods. Yarbeck sought to engineer a beast that was smart but also deadly. Is this the unknown beast? A terror on the battlefield ferocious, stealthy, cunning, and intelligent enough to be effective in both jungle and urban warfare. Not quite as intelligent as human beings, of course, not as smart as the dog that Weatherby was developing. It would be sheer madness to create a killing machine as intelligent as the people who would have to use it and control it. Everyone had read Frankenstein or had seen one of the old Karloff movies, and no one underestimated the dangers inherent in Yarbek's research. Choosing to work with monkeys and apes because of their naturally high intelligence and because they already possess human-like hands, Yarbek ultimately selected baboons as the base species for. Oh, okay. Yarbik was okay. I thought we were still talking about Weatherby. Oops. Okay, so Weatherby is responsible for Einstein, and Yarbek is responsible for the unknown beast that's roaming around killing everybody. Or am I mistaken? Baboons. Oh, for dark acts of creation. Baboons were among the smartest of primates. Good raw material. They were deadly and effective fighters by nature, with impressive claws and fangs, fiercely motivated by the territorial imperative, and eager to attack those whom they perceived as enemies. Yarbek's first task in the physical alteration of the baboon was to make it larger, big enough to turn a grown man, Lem said. She decided that it would have to stand at least 5 feet and weigh 100 to 110 pounds. That's not so big, Walt protested. Big enough. I could swat down a man that size. A man, yes, but not this thing. It's solid muscle, no fat at all, and far quicker than a man. Stop and think of how a 50-pound pit bull can make mincemeat of a grown man, and you'll realize that what a threat Yarbek's warrior could be at 110. The patrol car's steam silvered windshield seemed like a movie screen on which Walt saw projected images of brutally murdered men. Wes Dahlberg, Teal Porter. He closed his eyes, but still saw cadavers. Okay, yeah, I get your point. 110 pounds will be enough if we're talking about something designed to fight and kill. So Yarbek created a breed of baboon that would grow to greater size. Then she set to work altering the sperm and ova of her giant primates in other ways, sometimes by editing the baboon's own genetic material, sometimes by introducing genes from other species, Walt said. The same sort of cross-species patch and stitch that led to the smart dog. I wouldn't call it patch and stitch, but yeah, essentially the same techniques. Yarbek wanted a large, vicious jaw on her warrior, something more like that of a German shepherd, even a jackal. So there would be room for more teeth, and she wanted the teeth to be larger and sharper and perhaps slightly hooked, which meant she had to enlarge the baboon's head and totally alter its facial structure to accommodate all of this. The skull had to be the skull had to be greatly enlarged anyway to allow for a bigger brain. Dr. Yarbek wasn't working under the constraints that required that Davis Weatherby to leave his dog's appearance unchanged. In fact, Yarbrough figured that if her creation was hideous, if it was alien, it would be an even more effective warrior because it would serve not only to stalk and kill our enemies, but terrorize them. And so the stuff is going on is by their own people, man. So Yarbrough is responsible for the scared alien that's going around and killing everybody. In spite of the warm, muggy air, Walt Gaines felt a coldness in his belly as if he had swallowed big chunks of ice. Didn't Yarbrough or anyone else consider the immortality of this? For Christ's sake, didn't any of them ever read The Island of Dr. Moreau? Lem, you have a goddamn moral obligation to let the public know about this, to blow it wide open, and so do I. No such thing, Lem said. The idea that there's good and evil knowledge, well, that's strictly a religious point of view. Actions can be either moral or immoral. Yes, but knowledge can be labeled that way. To a scientist, to any educated man or woman, all knowledge is morally neutral. But shit, application of the knowledge in Yarbrough's case was morally neutral. Sitting on one or the other's patio on weekends, drinking Corona, dealing with the weighty problems of the world. They love to talk about this sort of thing. Backyard philosophers, beery sages, taking smug pleasure in their wisdom. And sometimes the more dilemmas they discuss on weekends were those that later arose in the course of their police work. However, Walt could not remember any discussion that had as urgent a bearing on their work as this one. Applying knowledge is part of the process of learning more, Lem said. The scientist has to apply his discoveries to see where application leads. Moral responsibility is on the shoulders of those who take the technology out of the lab and use it to immoral ends. Do you believe that bullshit? Lem thought a moment. Yeah, I guess I do. I guess if we held scientists responsible for the bad things that flowed from their work, they'd never go to work in the first place, and there'd be no progress at all. We'd still be living in caves. Walt pulled a clean handkerchief from his pocket and blotted his face, giving himself a moment to think. It wasn't so much the heat and humidity that had gotten to him. It was the thought of Yarbrough's warrior roaming the Orange County hills that made him break out in a sweat. He wanted to go public, warn the unwary world that something new and dangerous was loose upon the earth, but that would be playing into the hands of the new Luddites. Yeah, Luddites, who would use Yarbrough's word to generate public hysteria, and then attempt to bring an end to all recombinant DNA research. Already, such research had created strains of corn and wheat that could grow with less water and in poor soil, relieving world hunger. And years ago, they had developed a man-made virus that, as a waste product, produced cheap insulin. If he took word of Yarbrough's monstrosity to the world, he might save a couple of lives in the short run, but he might be playing a role in denying the world the beneficial miracles of recombinant DNA research, which would cost tens of thousands of lives in the long run. Shit, Walt said. It's not a black and white issue, is it? Lem said. That's what makes life interesting. Walt smiled sourly. Right now, it's a whole hell of a lot more interesting than I care for. Okay, I can see the wisdom of keeping a lid on this. Besides, if we made it public, you'd have 1,000 half-assed adventurers out there looking for the thing, and they'd end up victims of it, or they'd gun down one another. Exactly. But my man could help keep the lid on by joining in the search. Lem told him about the 100 men from Marine intelligence units who were still combining the foothills, dressed as civilians, using high-tech tracking gear and, in some cases, bloodhounds. I've already got more men online than you could supply. We're already doing as much as can be done. Now, will you do the right thing? Will you stay out of it? Frowning, Claw said. For now. But I want to be kept informed. Lem nodded. All right. And I have more questions. For one thing, why do they call it the outsider? Well, the dog was the first breakthrough, the first of the lab subjects to display unusual intelligence. This one was next. They were the only two successes, the dog and the other. At first, they added capital letters to the way they pronounced it, the other, but in time it became the outsider because that seemed to fit better. It was dying improvement on one of God's creation, as was the dog. It was entirely